I've said the same thing. When you jump or you're skydiving or you're flying or wingsuit, you just don't feel it's real. You're like, what? This can't be real.
This episode, I'm speaking with Vasil Tuchkov. Vasil is an entrepreneur, author, nomad, and daredevil. The week before this interview, he was doing flips out of a helicopter next to the Matterhorn so he could wingsuit away. Wingsuiting, base jumping, and paragliding, Vasil is in a constant fight with gravity. But when he is on the ground, he's working on expanding and growing his marketing companies or growing his graphic novel, It Remains.
The immersive novel can be enjoyed as a graphic novel, audiobook, or immersive interactive experience. This is a book of many secrets. In the beginning, most pages will be locked. Follow the clues in the application, scan the pages, or play mini-games to unlock them. Each page will reveal a hidden aspect of the world and characters of It Remains. Upon unlocking pages, readers will receive experience points, which can be traded with other players or converted to rewards. Make sure to check your notifications on the It Remains app for regular new clues on your journey to completing It Remains: The Immersive Novel Act 1.
I really enjoyed our conversation because I got to hear Vasil's philosophy around risk-taking and why base jumping and wingsuiting are so important to him. I'm excited for you to hear it, so let's get into it. Dude, the first word that comes to mind when I watch your videos and see your background is you're the most unshackled person I've ever seen in my entire life. You're completely location free. I feel like you've crafted your own career and like you fight with all your might against gravity, the ultimate law. Have you always had kind of a rebellious, iconoclastic nature?
If you're asking me if I was a bad student in school, yes, in the beginning, I was kind of always like a misfit outcast, but then I did pretty good in university because I got, before that, expelled from a couple of schools, and I was just like, it was hard for me to kind of deal with that, I guess. My folks who are great couldn't handle it as well. I had too much energy, and just to open a little bracket here, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, so thank you for the praise. That humbles me, but I'm just living my life the way I know it, and I got too much energy. I'm too hyperactive and too curious to just be in one place all the time. Once I read that quote from Jack Kerouac, which is now more of a cliche, change is the only constant, that kind of struck a chord. So if I continue to move and I'm proactive, even if I'm sad, even if I'm depressed, if I have trouble in life, because we all do have that, then it's a little bit easier to get through things and you don't have time. I like telling some friends when they start complaining about, oh, they have ADD or they're tired, they're depressed. You're not depressed, you're just lazy. You're not ugly, you're just poor. And they're pretty much connected, because once you stop being lazy, you stop being depressed and you stop being poor. And I don't mean poor in the sense of money necessarily, but generally experiences in life and circle of friends, just scope and vision, and becoming a citizen of the world rather than being stuck to what you were, to the cards that you were dealt initially. Because we all come from somewhere. Some of us come from nowhere, but I feel like it's our duty to seek a different path from what's been predetermined, and not a destination but a path, because there is no end goal. I feel like when we were kids, they used to tell us, one day when you discover happiness, right? And we're all waiting to find happiness, this pot of gold under the under the rainbow where a leprechaun comes out. But I mean, happiness is a cardiogram. You're up and down, up and down, up and down, and it's the journey and the mindset. I feel like that's at least my way to deal with those things. Like you said, gravity is probably the only law I truly respect, but also it's a kind of therapy for me. It's a therapist, and it puts me in my place. It makes me humble, and to go back to the subject of being brought up, uh, for example, my parents would take me to a friend of theirs, and there were sculptors, these friends, and they had like these huge statues that I immediately, when I was like 5, I would climb up, and the risk there was like not only can they smash me and kill me, but of course it's going to break the sculptures as well. But I was climbing on everything, and the solution of my folks, I remember they uh, let the old lady from the house beat me, give me a beating, which I found super offensive. How can somebody else beat me? That's your job. I realized that I hadn't been slapped enough because I was just a Tasmanian devil. And yeah, and afterwards you go through different stages, and you learn to play with others, and you learn to kind of tame yourself and re-educate yourself, because when you have a kid that's maybe a little bit too curious, or maybe has like a knack, because I do think it's genetic for action sports, for thrill seeking and things like that, you better navigate them into the particular sports that will give them discipline and the right set of tools to deal with its own madness, rather than trying to put them into a mold and to grow up as expected or as yourself. And I don't blame anybody for anything like that, because I mean, we're all doing our best, and our parents are all doing our best to kind of give us the life they envision us, right? But I feel that's kind of the way to re-educate yourself in this framework, and to control the chaos.
You definitely control chaos in the sense. You live life with such velocity and activity. Can you describe some highlights from just the past month of your life?
To be honest, I mean, as a writer, because that's part of what I do, I've often thought about my character, and it doesn't make sense sometimes in life. There's when you go to a writing workshop, let's say, and you would have beginners that would write a character or a story that just doesn't sound well on paper, and they would say, "No, no, but it really happened." That doesn't matter, because ultimately it just doesn't sound plausible. It doesn't sound so. I feel like my character is a little bit all over the place. I tried not to intertwine my lives. So I came up as a super nerdy kid. I was bullied. I started with, I was playing role playing games, writing fiction, playing Magic the Gathering. I'd always been inspired by stories, by
Yeah.
literature. And I wrote my first book at like 15, which was a fantasy trilogy. It got published. I'm originally from Bulgaria, but I grew up in the States, in California. Then I lived in several other places like Ukraine, um, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Amsterdam. And just at one point, I just stopped living in one particular place, but started living just traveling and adventuring. Meanwhile, I have a base and a business in Bulgaria, which is my headquarters, and I have clients from all over the world. And I kind of managed to sustain this life of digital nomadism, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was a super nerdy kid, and I wrote this book. It got published in Bulgaria. It got translated in Russian. I was kind of promising young. I hid from my publisher. I was at the time training and competing in boxing. I really fell in love with martial arts later, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, other ones, and always action sports. I wouldn't call them extreme sports. That's something I don't really fancy as a term, because I don't remember who was saying it, but extremism is something that people can relate to religious fundamentalism, let's say, to someone being extreme or wanting to detonate a bomb or whatever. It doesn't have to be extreme, because a lot of the things happening in the adventure sports and the action sports world is very calm, very measured. And people tend to always tell me, "Oh, you're an adrenaline junkie. It's like adrenaline." No, I actually don't like adrenaline as a drug, not at all. It's serotonin and dopamine. It's basically a state of flow when you enter. If you're walking on a slack line, if you're making love to your partner, if you're juggling, if you're writing an essay, if you're doing accounting, you don't even think about what you're doing. You know, the Chinese call it wu wei, wu wei. You know, Alan Watts kind of translated that for the Western world: action without action, non-conformity, where it's not laziness, but you let things pass through you, and you can only be in a state of wu wei and a flow when you're being in it. You cannot name it. You cannot realize it. The moment you say, "Oh, I'm doing it," you fall off the tightrope, right? So uh, there's adrenaline only when something goes wrong, and it puts you in your place again. You're like, "Oh, fuck."
Right.
So
This
I
would be
don't
the tunnel vision some climbers describe when they're in flow state. Nothing else matters. I'm in the moment.
Absolutely. I was with my mentor, with my base mentor, Jamie, Captain Manicorn, big up to him. I came for a snowboard base to do it because I've been snowboarding since I was like a kid. And then I wanted to unite my two passions. And all of a sudden he's like, no, we're going on a multi-pitch, 6C, 13 pitches on this 530-meter cliff in Chamonix. And yeah, it's nuking winds and a storm is coming. I was like, what? I wasn't in even, I love climbing. I do it now daily, but at that moment I wasn't in climbing shape. So I had to pull my inner David Goggins, kind of suffer through it. But once you get, like you said, in the state of flow, and there's no turning back, and you click, then you realize that the moment you are tired or thought you can go there, they say that you have another like 70% or whatever it is. But there's no there's no panic, there's no stress. Let's say before any jump or stunt or anything I do, if it's a new thing, I worry a lot. I'm, like we like to speak, I'm terrified. At night I'm thinking like, base jumping is the stupidest sport in the world. Why am I doing this? I got a life, I got a business, I love art, nature, exploring. There's more to life for me than this. And then the morning I'm like, send it. But the whole thing is that there's calculation, worry before the actual execution of the stunt or challenge you want, or the climb. And then once you're in it, once you're on the edge of the cliff, everything disappears. No trouble with your girlfriend or boyfriend, no worry about money, no stress about anything, your family. You're just in the zone. And the moment you take a leap of faith, you're in this moment an absolute just, you become one with the moment, and everything works flawlessly in your body. There's no like parasite idle movements. There's no, especially for someone like me, for example, I have a problem with focusing. And I'm definitely, if in the 90s, in the 97, when I was in the States, they weren't diagnosing kids with ADD so much. Now I would definitely be, because I see the symptoms. But I feel like most of society has it due to mobile phone exposure, social media, distraction, sounds, and our attention span is so eaten up that we all suffer from it. The moment I go in the mountain, or I'm reading a book here, or I'm flying my paraglider, it all calms down. So I feel it's not something that should be necessarily treated with medication, but more like with a change of lifestyle and a slowing down, and just trying different things, preventive. So as someone who has a hard time focusing in these sports, I tend to focus. I was learning to pack a bass rig. I was terrified. I couldn't even, it could evenly. I never was this kind of person. And a bass rig, you have to pretty much fold like origami. Everything even, line tension, symmetric. So I was focusing on it so much and psyching about it that in the end, after many hundreds of packs, I started to enjoy it actually, and to I put in like a headset on, listen to some music, and it becomes a form of meditation. So with these sports, I learned to love the things I hate. And coming from business, and I'll get back to that because when I wrote this book later on, I hid from my publisher, like I said, but I got kind of tired of being broke because I was doing art, installation art, writing. I was a photographer, then directing, then film work, things like this, shooting little commercials here and there. I got exhausted, and I started a company called Studio Rubik, where we do guerrilla marketing for clients. We do branding, UX, UI, film, commercials, animation, and so on. And I was also a
Can you
partner in
define guerrilla marketing?
well, guerrilla marketing is like an exotic, non-standard way to promote a product or let's say a service by creating earned media for it. Where let's say the Pocahontas movie, when it came out, they released it in Central Park for free, and everyone got to watch it for free and in the park. And this generated huge, media coverage that was not paid for. So that was
Hmm.
guerrilla. And I started with. I was living in Amsterdam at the time, living in squats and doing tattoos for Hell's Angels. A completely different life after my university in my 20s. And I kind of went back. I was filming and writing about it. And I went back and I did this installation called Living Museum, where it showed Amsterdam through the prism of Alice in Wonderland. And it was a living museum where you had like the twins of two twins dressed as Queen of Spades and Queen of Hearts, and there were also girls behind the red light district window. And people could experience the whole exhibition. It had like live exhibits, but this kind of started well, like little guerrilla marketing. I found little sponsors here and there, and then I created a show called Living Web, which was kind of like the internet, but in a literal sense. So you would go in this labyrinth of 3D mapping, performance, installations, where a little bit like Burning Man inspired, where you would see like a live YouTube stage, and people would submit videos or songs, and three actors and musicians will perform them impromptu. If they don't know it, there will be a 404 error sign. They would have like a live bar for the YouTube underneath going. We would have a Google that can answer any question. And it was like this elder on a throne of books with a beard of cables. We had like a game level where people could control 3D avatars of glow in the dark in glow in the dark costumes that were actually parkour athletes that you can control over the level with a button, forward, backward, flip, and so on. So once I started doing this, I couldn't find funding, like European funding or state funding. So I went from door to door and I started knocking on banks, on Sony, Comedy Central, etc. And I sold each exhibit as a guerrilla marketing. They were branded. So it was the Comedy Central stage, for example. And I raised 100K at the time, which I spent entirely on the event. It was so exhausting in the end. The event was a blast. I had like 4,000 people. We had like all across the city these screens in the shape of an eye where people can control a person with a camera on his head remotely, and basically can experience the exhibition and the labyrinth from a different spot in the city, kind of turning the whole city into a stage. And afterwards, I was so tired to do it again that I started doing it for clients. So basically, anytime they needed some installation or something, then we
So,
got into.
does that
Which,
event establish your name in the guerrilla marketing space? It's a little
yeah,
easier to get clients
for the
now.
moment, yeah, for the moment,
Yeah.
but it was easy to forget for the moment. And then we got like we started doing video production and adventure viral videos. We had like about 50 million views on different for different companies, and a lot of things with people are awesome, that kind of style. And then I remember we did like a kind of tongue-in-cheek video against Trump back in the day, where we were throwing like from a giant rope swing watermelons into his giant blown up face, which was also a target, but doing like stunts. And it was just basically saying your vote is no joke. It was a tongue in cheek. We didn't even care about politics. We're completely agnostic. But our channel got shut, and we asked some people and said it was like political censorship, it got flagged. So that was cancellation before people were even getting canceled. I think it was in maybe 2015 or something. But we did a lot of video production and a lot of branding for companies of the world, for Red Bull, for Sony, for Comedy Central, a lot of like fashion editorials and branding and tech. And I was a partner at also a tech company called Motion Software, which we build a community for remote workers, where we took them paragliding, kite surfing, coding from villages. And this company got sold last year to Sun Capital. exadel.com. So I've been in tech and art. My two skills are creative and sales. So I've been in these fields for a long time, for the last 15 years. And I was pretty much burning out a lot. So that's kind of how It Remains came about. And one of the things that saved me from burnout and from depression, and I'll tell you the story about it, was the world of adventure sports, because like Jocko Willing says, it was the only thing that felt like it, probably about extreme ownership. I really took this to heart because everybody feeling a little bit like an imposter. Everybody has the imposter syndrome in one or another area of his life, where, for example, you feel like a phony. Or am I a climber? Am I a business guy? Am I a writer? Am I this or that? But when we started, when I would pack my base rig and I would walk up, hike up, or climb up to an exit, and I would jump to my death, but survive, come out reborn, and land safely. This is the only time where I felt like I had my life in my own hands.
You found success in marketing and sales, like you said, and in tech. And then is there a part of you that still doesn't feel like you're 100% satisfied? So you start looking for things like base jumping, or did you already know about base jumping during your early guerrilla marketing efforts?
No, no, I have not looked about for any of this. I've been snowboarding. I've been skiing first since I was 3. My dad would put me on his skis. Then I started snowboarding, and it's been like 23 or 4 years of snowboarding and climbing mountains and doing powder backcountry, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
at a mountain 20 minutes away from home, so I've always been a mountain boy. And then wakeboarding, parkour and free run, martial arts. I've always been. They were kind of like organically a lot of the people from different communities that I met later I saw in let's say skydiving or another sport. So I started once I started skydiving, COVID hit and we couldn't skydive. So I started paragliding and we went to Africa and we flew from Table Mountain and Wilderness and Lion's Head and just explored there. It was beautiful. We managed to survive because it's pretty gnarly to learn there, but it kind of opened me up and I was in the company of a lot of base jumpers, wingsuiters, kind of learning, taking it slow. At first telling myself I would never base jump, this is stupid, and then one thing leads to another and then you understand it, then becomes possible. And then I met my mentor Jamie, Captain Manicorn, who really took me into this world and took me on some of my most amazing adventures. And like we like to say, base jumping is not so much about the jumping. You jump and it's a minute. It's about the people. And we may not be the best athletes in the sport, but we definitely have a rat time. And it's all about for us for the freedom of expression and having a great time. Because as we're going up, we're trying to tell a story. And also, it's some people in this field, like a lot of skydivers, they can only talk about skydiving. I can't stand it. For everybody who's ever skydived, that's the first thing they tell you. There's a meme where it's like a 100 urinals in a bathroom, and one guy is pissing in the corner, and then one guy walks in, goes right next to him, and says, "I'm a skydiver." Of course, and this is something that basically kind of personifies them and makes them feel like something greater, like a superhero. But it's pretty much as important as you skiing or climbing or playing the didgeridoo. Or it's I don't feel like any of the things I do make me a special person in some way, or that they turn you into a superhero. It's about connecting with the right people, the freedom of expression, and the really weird part where I don't know who let me do that. Sometimes, as I was just flying from Mont Blanc the other week, I was like, how am I allowed to do this? I feel like there needs to be a parent or a teacher who's gonna, stop me from doing it. And it's also so absurd where we're climbing up a mountain, a bunch of monkeys pretending to be birds. We climb with our backpacks and we jump and we fly and we land. And there's almost no electronics involved into it. Maybe we'll laser the exit, do something like that. We
Yeah.
have applications, we have communication, but it's so primitive that for me there's poetry in that. It's beautiful. Like surfing to this day for me is one of the purest forms to be in touch with the elements, because it's just a board and a man and his skills and endurance, and and it's just so gnarly, and it could have existed thousands of years ago. So this is something that definitely attracts me, and I try not to belong to any community too much. I
Yeah.
just hook up with the right kind of people, and right kind for me, right? There's no right or wrong. I mean, we're all honestly, like I've spoken to a lot of friends on the issue of like racism, politics. For me, I'm generally a misanthrope, a gregarious misanthrope, where I hate all people equally. I'm not gonna hate somebody less or more because someone tells me to. In fact, if you tell me to hate this, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be on the other side immediately. So for me, generally, we suck, but there is exceptions. And in nature, we tend to be better versions of ourselves. We are humbled, we are quieter, we see perspective, and you kind of understand the magnitude of just of scale when you're in Grand Canyon or the Alps, and you just see how insignificant you are, how you can just slip into a crevasse and never be found again. And this kind of humble you. Sit down, young man, and it's also, I see people in the mountain, they're much kinder to each other, which in the city is rare to see, because everybody's chasing the dollar or being stuck in traffic, aggression and nerves, and not getting good sleep, energy, food, water, all of this. So this is why, even though I need the city, and I'm originally I come from a city, I shy away from it now, and I only go to do my bidding, my work, if we're doing an art show in Art Basel,
Yeah.
Miami, or New York, or somewhere, Dubai, and then I am back into my church. That's also my religion. Like I'm agnostic religiously, but for me, the closest thing to God is nature, and is
I imagine you pray a bit when you're doing your base jump too, right?
absolutely, absolutely anything. If we're climbing, if and I thank it, and I tell it how much I love it, and when I say sometimes I love you into the camera, I've had girlfriends ask me, "Was that for me?" I was like, "It was actually for life. It's for everything." And I'm sure everything I'm saying now even rings cliche in my ears. That I feel like a bunch of nature lovers, mountaineers, or athletes have said it before me, but I feel there's something definitely that connects us. It's the feeling. It's hard to put it into words,
Yeah.
because we all risk our lives for fun, seemingly for no reason. And I've had to dig deep, and because I was a bookworm, and read a lot about it. Why is it this? And I've reached the conclusion that some of us carry genes of being like warriors from back in the day, let's say, where you had to, go and fight and overcome and even pillage. And at one point, when you're in society, it's what Peterson says, the concept of the tamed savage, or how did he coin it? Jordan Peterson. And it's a matter of, you need to be like dangerous, and you need to have skills, but you need to be refined and in control of your senses and of your fury. And once we're living in this society and abiding by the rules of it, and there's no of course, in the world there are places like that, but in most of the Western world, there are no bombs falling on your head, no wild animals chasing you, like a tiger chasing you, or nature calamity or something. Then the biggest fight of a warrior is with his own madness. So in order to control this madness, you can choose different ways. Often, a lot of these people that are in these sports, whether it's action sports, fight sports, adventure sports, conquerors, explorers, if they're stuck for too long, they had a period often in their life where they were addicts. It could have been drugs, it could have been gambling, addiction to any form of toxic behavior. And it's because they were looking for something. And I have struggled with addiction. And when I've been you can only substitute it. And there's different ways that you can do it. And when I go and I seemingly risk my life for nothing, as some bystander might say, this is a way that calms me down, and afterwards I feel like I haven't wasted breath. Like it's something that makes my existence meaningful, it also kicks my ass and humbles me, and I can be a good boy that way, which has been hard before.
Vasil, will you tell me about your latest Mont Blanc climb?
My cousin, I think I mentioned that, Mark Dimov, shout out to him. Lovely, lovely guy. He's the one that opened me up to photography as a kid. He was this talented photographer, and then his dad grew up with my grandmas that raised me. And as a kid, he was kind of, he's a little bit older, kind of a figure I looked up to. And then I hadn't seen him in for like 10 or 15 years since his dad died, and he's American. And we reconnected at Burning Man. We cried for our dead ones at the temple, where you would see people die cry for their loved ones. You would see even parents cry for their dead kids. It's really something more than just a festival, and that was really the start of our kind of reconnection. So he's one of my coolest relatives and one of my closest friends, and he called me up. He hit me up a month and a half ago, telling me that he'd broken up with his love, with his woman, after 7 years, and he was kind of crushed. And I was like, "Get a one-way ticket, and I'll give you your wings. Come over." And we started teaching him paragliding. We started from a small hill in Bulgaria, and slowly progressed. Went to Turkey, where just a second, because there's a car here. I feel like it's going to disturb the audio. So we started from this Bulgarian hill. That was just a soaring flight, just a straight flight. And then we progressed. We went to Turkey in Uludeniz. We flew in Antalya. We flew over lagoons, cloud based, through the clouds, and a bunch of adventures. Passed through Italy and France. And finally, on the 19th day of the death camp, because we call anything that's not a course, but it's a friend teaching another friend. We call it a death camp. Death camps. Captain Manico has given me many death camps, and each one teach one, kind of this mentality. So at the end of his death camp, after 19 days, he flew from the top of Mont Blanc, and it was absolutely surreal.
So,
And
do you
I
have
don't
to
think we
hike
were
up
feeling that.
Mont Blanc with all that gear?
It depends. You can sort up. Like we took the Monte Bianco Skyway. They
Okay.
took off. They managed to soar up. I couldn't take off because the winds turned and became katabatic, and I had to sleep in the chalet where I met some great friends. But I was having a great time until I drank some glacier water there, because I was like, "Wow, I'm on top of the mountain. Everything is so pristine here. This water is amazing." And so as I'm drinking, I read this kind of note. It was in Italian, but I kind of managed to translate it to myself, and it said basically, "Don't drink the water." I was like, "What?" And I went and I asked this guy. I'm like, "Should I be worried?" He's like, "Oh, not if you drank more than a teacup. Only if you drank more than a teacup." And I'm like, "Okay, how can I measure that?" And if you have a weak stomach, don't worry about it. So apparently, first of all, glacier water, my research showed me post factum, should never be, you know, fucked with, because it can contain and preserve bacteria that's thousands of years old. First of all, second of all, they kept it in containers uh, at the chalet, where it was just brewing there for days and days under the sun and the cold. And it was like water for washing, I guess. It went in the toilets everywhere. So I had a sip of that, and or a sip or two. I kind of gulped it. I wanted to get some of that beautiful, fresh glacier mountain air, mountain water. So a day later, I'm very happy that nothing happened throughout my flight. But as I landed, my stomach was like, "There's something wrong about it." And for the next 4 or 5 days, like hell was coming out of every orifice on my body. So projectile, projectile. And I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand straight. We had like missions. We were
Little
gonna go
extra
on
momentum for your
multi-pitch.
jump.
Yeah, we're gonna go on a multi-pitch with Jamie. I couldn't even walk. I lost like 5 kilos, which was actually good for climbing afterwards. But the adventure was amazing, and flying over the glaciers was amazing. And it's been one adventure after the other that I can't. It's a bit of a blur, and I'm still in the adventure mode. I just jumped wingsuit gainer from a helicopter above Matterhorn, which is the mountain that resembles the Toblerone chocolate, right? And Switzerland. And I flew down the mountain, and it was ecstatic. So that was, I think,
Sorry,
two
so
hours
just to
ago.
break that all down, you're in a helicopter next to one of the
Yes,
most iconic mountains in the Alps,
I'll
and
give you
you
the footage
do
so you can play it.
a front flip out of the
No,
helicopter,
not a front flip, a gainer, a backflip,
so
but
a
forward.
forward rolling backflip, right?
Yes, and a
Or like
wingsuit over Matterhorn. So, and it was very stable. Rob Heron, Free Fly Rob, guided me through it. He's a legend in the sport, super sweet guy, and we were together. So it's good to play with the right kind of playmates. Like Mark was surprised because I was his mentor for paragliding, and I came to my mentor, and I was like scrubbing dishes and listening to everything he says and saluting. It's because in these sports you should learn to be humble and remember the rule that every daddy's got a daddy. Even Jamie Captain Manicorn had his mentor Valentin Polardi, who's his climbing mentor around, and who always criticizes his pace that he's slow. So we're all learning from each other, and for me, the greatest, like my role models are not. Let's say Red Bull athletes, stunt people. I've worked with Red Bull a lot in the past, both for commercial work and extreme videos. And it's I don't care who does what and how good someone is. First of all, they have to be a kind person. And there's a lot of narcissism in our sport. And all of us, I feel like it's a common trait that we have to battle ourselves and battle our own ego, like William Burroughs says, your ego being your greatest enemy, but it's also your catalyst, because without ego you wouldn't climb a mountain and try to do something that nobody's done or that you haven't done yet. But having said that, the other factor that really inspires me in athletes and in people that have achieved things is longevity in the sport. So my idol, for example, is a guy, I don't even know his surname. I've met him twice already at the Heli Boogie base, Heli Boogie in Norway. He's 75. His name is Michael, and he jumps a wingsuit from the cliff in his late 70s. And I find this amazing. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, you're my hope for the future. On Monte Brento, one time I was hiking, I remember, and I like to think that I have a pretty good pace, good cardio. I work out twice a day. I haven't had more than 3 months of break working out for the last maybe 20 years, and only when I've had surgery. And he smoked me. There's this guy that's pushing from behind me, and he's an old man with a white beard and both. And I'm like, who's this guy? What does he want? What does this old man want? And he's like rushing the path. And as I'm going, at one point, I let him pass. I'm like, Jesus, man, okay, pass. And he smokes me. He vanishes up. So I was like, oh man, I'm such a pussy, and I can't believe that, and etc. And another guy comes and says, "Don't worry about it. He's climbed all the 8,000 peaks, and he's a legend, an alpinist." And so yeah, it's a mindset. It's not an age thing, and I feel like it's good for us to be humbled and to also keep exploring our own possibilities, not trying to compare ourselves to others or compete. I was never a fan of like group sports, or I've competed in the past, but now I shy away from it because it triggers my ego in a way that I don't enjoy, and I become less pleasant. I have to win and that kind of thing. And in these sports, if you're doing something to win or to land the hardest trick or to get a really good video, social media followers, things like that, this is how you die. So just this month, like this year, I think it's been already 25 people that died from base. While I've been here in Switzerland, two people have died. We have this. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
We have this closed private Facebook group called the BFL list, which is the base fatality list. And since I've been here in the last 10 days in Switzerland, two people have passed away, one with a wingsuit and one with a tracksuit. One of the guys, I was a month ago in Norway at Heli Boogie. We had our coffees every day in the morning. The fact that I found out that he died, a young kid, 32, super cool English boy. And it seems so surreal because you look at the faces of these people and you don't expect them that this can happen, and then when once it happens, you're like, oh shit, this can happen to me as well. So it makes it all the more real. And like I said, base jumping is not about, and I feel generally adventure sports, it's not about the actual act of doing it, of jumping. It's about the people that you meet between life and death, and you share the love for it together and the love for each other, and you share the stoke. And it's very strange. It's liberating. You every conversation when I go to a jump or I'm with these people, I know that. There's a risk that this may be my last day on this planet. So every breath tastes different. Everything I put in my mouth, every word that comes out of it has a different sense. Every moment, every view, I learn to appreciate things because we often, and I often, take things for granted, and we
Yeah.
constantly find reasons to complain about our lives, about not being perfect. Could be making more money. We could be with this person. What are we doing with our lives? And I feel it's an internal thing. It's not about what you achieve, but how you perceive things. And the I feel like the only thing that we can control, and it's still questionable if we can control even that, is our reaction to the things happening around us. So you can choose how to react it. I Most of my like adventures and feats I've done after a very very dark time, and
Vasil, do you
yeah.
ascribe a morality to risk taking? Is there a sense where a risk becomes almost immoral to take? Does that question make sense?
Well, Jamie's rig says moral free.
Yeah,
Actually,
interesting.
for yeah, for me, I think it's very individual. I am I'm a teenager. I'm not one of the top athletes out there, so I wouldn't know what it is after. Let's say today I jump with Rob. He has 13,000 jumps. Uh, two more than 3,000 with a wingsuit, about 2,000 from a cliff with a wingsuit. And I was just talking to him because the top two reasons that kill people in this are when you're inexperienced and don't know a lot about it in the beginning, and later when you become complacent, when it's a habit, when everything is happening, just it becomes blasé. It's like ordinary. People that are so experienced in the sport, in skydiving and base jumping and everything, they forget to hook their, for example, canopies to attach them to the rigs, and they jump and it falls out, and just ridiculous deaths all over because it becomes complacent. And in all of these sports are beautiful. Skydiving is beautiful, paragliding, base jumping, wingsuiting, speed flying. The only problem with these sports are the people in it, I feel, and the ego, because you want a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit closer to the edge. And then also it becomes like routine. At first you're afraid, you're trying this hyper focus I'm talking about, and then later it's all becoming, a normality. If this is how you roll, but there's no load game in this game, and it's very very easy to be reminded of your own mortality, and how and fragility, how fragile we are. It terrifies me. Almost everyone I know have had a horrible accident. Right now, I have a broken jaw as we speak, but it's healing. And these moments will either humble you, you'll get better and better and better. Then you'll get hurt, and it will humble you. You'll dial it down, or you'll die. It depends. It's kind of we only learn through experience and through burning ourselves. But for me, it's the same of overcoming darkness and looking for light. uh, wouldn't be possible without the darkness in the first place. So at the beginning of COVID, I had surgery from a snowboarding accident that had me bound to a bed for 4 months in an L-sit position, and I still have like several surgeries here on my shoulder, and like a clavicle dislocation. And I also at this moment broke up. There was the end of a relationship with at the time the love of my life for 7 years, and it was also COVID. So it was such a dark place for me that I started writing this book as a form of escape. I couldn't move. I couldn't do my things. So uh, this book was about a father and son at the end of the world, and I started to live it. And then I took it to my friend and neighbor Ed. Actually, he came because I couldn't get out of the house. And what I couldn't refuse to show, Ed showed through his artwork. We decided to make it. He'd worked for Blizzard before. We decided to make it a graphic novel, and one thing led to another, and our art director became the art director of Finding Nemo, Wally, and The Incredibles. Anthony, shout out to him. We did a tour around the world with the book. We created an immersive experience in 17 countries, and fast forwarded, we're building a franchise, doing a computer game, a Netflix animation on the world of It Remains, and it's something that changed my life entirely and allows me to have this freedom to do my adventures as well.
Yeah.
Financially.
To
Yeah.
interject,
So
sorry. It
yeah,
Remains is your graphic novel, but it's so much more. It's a multimedia. That looks like there's interactive elements, but it's a post-apocalyptic father-son journey. And I didn't realize the context in which you wrote it, that you yourself
yeah,
were almost in your own
yeah,
post-apocalyptic hellscape
absolutely,
where you were bedridden.
absolutely. Under the influence of mind-altering substances and alcohol, I wrote this book that now is a tech
Mm.
company valued at $15 million, and we are 22 shareholders inside it on 5 continents. So it's very surreal. I'm a passenger in the car. I just wrote a book that took off, and I mean, I don't know what is going on. Like I said, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, man. To be quite honest, but I just can't stay idle. I'm proactively looking for ways to heal my soul
Vasil, did
and
you
to
did you read graphic novels growing up?
yes, I read graphic novels, I read fantasy, I read classical books. I was like I said, a big bookworm. So
Yeah.
I had a hiatus of writing where before I felt like, oh, if I'm not publishing anymore, I'm not a writer. If I'm not a writer, I'm not anything. But I realized that the only thing that it belongs to an artist or a creator is the process, the time while you're doing it. So nothing else matters. Afterwards is not yours. So I wrote this personally as a form of escape. It was a story about which after war, like the one happening, in Gaza war, like the one happening in Ukraine, overfishing, overconsumption, all that's left in the world is bone, dust, and plastic. So basically, our planet fast forwarded in time. And at the center of this barren wasteland, there's a mysterious yellow lake, which the few remaining survivors call the Yellow Mouth. And this yellow mouth is a swallowing pit, and it's drawing in the surface of the world, sucking it inside constantly, very slowly, um, ad infinitum. And we meet these two characters, it and its father, because genders and pronouns and names even are forever gone. All that's left is it and it. And each day, it and its father walk in the opposite direction of everything else. They walk for so long that when they gain enough distance and stop to sleep, they wake up the next day in front of the shores of Yellow and not beyond it inside as they drift in their sleep backwards, and they start over again. So this cycle, back and forth, it's like living on a treadmill, and it's like a metaphor for life. Why get out of bed sometimes? Why kiss your
Right.
lover when we're gonna die? Why make money when you're gonna spend it? Anytime we don't commit suicide, we're all making a choice to keep going, to continue, and what it is to find light in the darkness, and what it is to raise a kid at the end of the world.
And
And
everyone
I
has their pit, right? Everyone has a pit that they're trying to fill with something, right?
absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes it's hard to get out of bed, but we still have
Yeah.
to find. And as we spoke with you, I also, just as yourself, I was raised in a little bit in San Francisco, and the problem with the homeless people now there in 10 cities has touched me a lot. So I went around different cities of the world and shot the homeless with a camera, not with a gun, right? Important to say. And we turned them into our characters, and It Remains is raising awareness for plastic pollution and for homelessness, because I feel they're the resistors of our society. Our characters are called resistors of the Yellow Mouth, but if we're not careful, everybody thinks that they're really far away from pushing a cart, from living in a tent. But everyone is one mental illness, one bankruptcy, one war, which are happening closer and closer now days, to becoming that. And I feel like the solution is preventive, and we need to kind of see ourselves from the side and try to prevent that future, which could happen exponentially sooner than expected. And yeah, I don't like to say that out loud because it feels like, oh, a lot of people are using global warming as kind of a PR spiel. But for me, I really give a shit. And if I can tell a story and also contribute to the world, it would make me feel less like the poop bag I am. And yeah, and we came out with an NFT collection that we sold at the Eiffel Tower. We had an event inside that was very surreal. We sold like animated pictures from the show
Yeah,
for
so
like
you're in Comic-Con too?
Comic Con. Just we sold 23 pieces at first for $225,000, and then we had a premiere in Dubai, where in the biggest immersive gallery I've seen, 40,000 square feet of mapped space, immersive. So people left the realm of the physical and stepped into a graphic novel come to life.
Vasil, was this an exciting project for you in the sense that it blended all of your competencies? It has the tech element, it has the sales element, and the creative writing element?
Correct, and I had the team to do it because we'd been doing it for companies
You had
for
the
so long.
varsity team, man. You had the A team. Finding
Yeah,
Nemo and yeah.
yeah. So we created this thing almost from scratch, and now the book we call it the immersive novel because you can experience it as a graphic novel, as an audiobook, or as an augmented reality experience. So it comes with an app, and once you open the app, you can actually unlock pages by
Yep.
solving riddles or scanning them, and they become alive. So the pages are animated, and 3D characters come out of them. And these characters, you can earn experience points that later you can convert into our merchandise, whether it's T-shirts, toys, our event tickets, or you can convert them into our crypto token, which is coming up, the resistor token, so people can mine with the book. So the whole thing is immersive, gamified experiences
Yeah.
that transcend the passive way of content consumption and turn viewers into participants. So you can choose how you want to imagine watching your favorite series or anime and also being able to be a character inside or a co-creator in order to monetize to make your own collection. We want to make it interactive. That's why Hollywood is bullish on us, and that's why the Web3 community also likes us because we're the bridge between the two, and we're native in both, and we're really trying to give the middleman a middle finger because anytime you go to the cinema now, you can't watch movies like Fight Club, like The Matrix, like Citizen King, Ghost in the Shell, and imagine being able to immersively experience them and to
Yeah.
become for the story. It's all about that for me.
Well,
Yeah,
Vassal, like we said at the start of the interview, man, you are unshackled by restraints. Even in terms of legacy media, I feel like you've taken a completely new approach and said, "Hey, I get it was done this way for so long, but I'm doing it a new way. I'm going to turn my writing into a multimedia experience, like you said, that transcends any one form of art." It's very cool.
it happened very organically, man. I don't know what to say. I feel like a passenger in the car. One thing led to another, and I'm nothing without my team, which have been supporting me, helping fundraise this, create it, draw it, because you cannot be a one man show. You got to learn to play. And they do frown upon me when I go on my crazy adventures. Sometimes I write my will, even. But it's what keeps me sane. And for example, before the Paris event, where that we booked the entire Eiffel Tower and we invited 400 people in a place for 80, and we created commotion over there. We had a live auction inside. Before this event, I went with Jamie on a trip where we bought a boat and we sailed from Denmark through Holland and finally to Norway. And we learned to sail on YouTube. So it was a huge disaster. I was vomiting for like 16 hours straight. We sailed with Jamie and his wife Sandra and the three dogs.
Sorry,
Journey.
Jamie's on your It Remains team.
No, he's my base mentor and he's my adventure buddy.
Oh, right, right.
Captain Unicorn, shout out. And we sailed the Atlantic and entered the fjords with some Viking music and went to the heli boogie where helicopters would pick us up. We would base jump. It was my first Earth jump at the time, years ago. And then we would do this consistently, surrounded by 3,000 feet waterfalls from the fjords at the end of the world. Really a Viking experience. And my dreams are not this good. And afterwards, I came and I went to the Eiffel Tower and did this. So all of these experiences. For example, It Remains was heavily based on Burning Man inspired, bone, dust, and plastic, that kind of thing. Then throughout my journeys, I think things that I put into my art afterwards, I feel like there's a synergy between all of it. It's
Yeah.
all of it is me, and it would not exist on its own. And my parents don't like what I do very much. My mom's blocked on social media, so she can't see, but people tell her kind of. But it's what I tell my dad. This may kill me, but it's saving my life every day.
Yeah. Vasil, what's the best way for people to find and support you?
If they want to follow my adventures, they can follow them on Instagram on Tuchkov, Toochkoff,
Yeah.
Vasil Tuchkov. And other than that, they can follow itremains.com. And we have It Remains on Twitter, It Remains on Facebook, on Instagram. On Facebook, not so much, but on Instagram, Twitter, Discord. And they can learn how to become a part of the story. There's going to be a Netflix show. We're doing a board game. It's going to be probably released this Christmas. So anybody that wants to reach out, wants to collaborate, or just tell me their ideas on the subject, or wants to go on adventure together, I'm open. Like I said, each one teach one, and take it easy, but take it. That's kind of my motto.
Well, you just live a wild life, man. I'm glad you share it. It's fun to experience on through the
Uh,
lens that you choose to share.
Thank you so much, man. I really don't think I'm doing anything special. I feel like anybody can do what I do. I'm just Frank Zappa has a famous album, "Shut Up and Play Your Guitar." So before that, I was complaining constantly about my life. How could it be better? How I could be doing this? And at one point, after some heartbreak and after some turmoil and some health problems, I just decided I'm not going to waste my time in this simulation, and I'm just gonna go forward like a meat missile. That's what Jamie calls me, a meat missile. So. For better or worse, that's the term for someone that flies without controlling the air, but it's also a metaphor in life. So I feel like I just didn't take my foot off the gas, and things started happening because
Yeah.
when you move, the universe is movement, and change is the only constant, and you become one with change, and then you start seeing new worlds that you never suspected existed.
Beautifully said, man. Hey, a lot of your posts talk about the simulation.
Yeah.
Are you one of these people that think we live in a simulation?
What is a simulation? It could be a metaphor. There's a simulation of it's. I mean, a city is a simulation as well. It's. I just like playing with different theories. I don't believe in any particular conspiracy theory, or even atheism is a form of religion. So I'm agnostic and curious, and I like joking with everything. But like a lot of scientists and philosophers have said, it's more likely that it is a simulation than not. And if you notice how virtual reality is expanding, becoming more and more realistic, maybe at one point it's going to be indistinguishable from our current reality. And then if you take this a notch further, maybe this what we're living is already one of those realities, creating another reality of itself, another reality. It's like, again, in Taoism, Wu Wei, like the Chinese, the fox or the dog chasing its tail.
Yeah.
It's, I feel like for me, life and all this diversity in what we're doing is a form of self entertainment for itself, to rediscover itself and create new versions of it. And I feel like we're alive. We're all part of this idea, the illusion of a self, even like Jim Carrey says, where we think we're so important and we're our each entire world, and but I've never seen any waste in nature, in the universe. So your energy might not be the same person. That's based on these set of coincidences, genes, happenings, but the energy won't go in vain, and it will go back to the whole, to the collective. So we're these selves while we exist, pretending to be something apart, uh, and not something that is a part. So of course there There's also
Yeah.
string theory, and other things where maybe this already happened, and you can go down the rabbit hole. But
No, it's a really interesting worldview, and I can see how it empowers the decisions you make. If you say,
no,
it allows me to do these things, and it facilitates this point of view.
I've talked to other people as well. I've spoken to I've spoken to friends of mine that have said the same thing. When you jump or you're skydiving or you're flying a wingsuit, you just don't feel it's real. You're like, what? This can't be real.
Yeah,
Bullshit. This is not happening. This is a game. A lot of it feels gamified, and the coincidence in life feel also gamified. And modern philosophers tend to, expand this idea more and more, and it gets also reinforced by tech because, for me, imagination is the fuel for innovation. Like Jules Verne's Captain Nemo, and the Nautilus, which was the first submarine, and then a scientist or an engineer realized the submarine.
yeah,
Leonardo's flying devices, everything like art and tech have gone hand in hand together. Somebody comes with a crazy idea, and then somebody's like, "Oh, I'm going to try to realize and manifest that idea," and that leads to something new. So, if we're all collectively thinking that it's a simulation, then more likely than not, it is. But does it matter? It's again like in the Matrix, the quote of Cypher while he's eating a steak, a virtual steak, with Agent Smith at the table, and says that ignorance is bliss. Does it even matter? Just try to live that simulation to the fullest, and don't
yeah.
be boring. Don't be boring. That's what I tell my friends, my girl, everybody. Like with me, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be bad, but it's not gonna be boring. That's as good as I can do. It's like the pawn shop show where people show up and the best I can do is this. This is it.
I love it, man. Yeah, it's just it's you have such a unique way of experiencing the world. It's cool to see.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And like I said, I don't feel like I'm doing anything special. Thank you for the conversation. And
I really appreciate the time, man. You're a great storyteller. Great. I can see why you're into creative writing. It's fun hearing all these experiences. Really appreciate it.
thank you so much. And I'd love to climb sometime with you, whether it's in Europe or in the States or somewhere else. So hit me up if you're doing a road trip, and we can go on a multi-page, do some lead climbing. It'll be
Heck
fun.
yeah, man. That's this episode of Outliers. Thanks so much to Vasil for joining, and thank you for listening. I've linked his socials in the description below. Be sure to check him out, and make sure to hit the follow button so you stay tuned for future interviews.